All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're talking about sovereignty. That's what the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, promised us immediately after the elections. He said he would apply sovereignty over the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria. That was an election or two ago in this last year. We're going to third elections now in just another week or two. And he's again talking about sovereignty, how we're going to apply sovereignty. And we have a sort of green light from Washington. And unfortunately, our Prime Minister doesn't like to do things like this, such bold things, unless he does have a green light from Washington. We're going to be talking about all of this and what's needed to be done with our guest, Nadia Matar. She is the co-chairwoman of the Women in Green and the Sovereignty Movement with Yehudit Katzover. They came out with a statement supporting the Prime Minister's statement about possible annexation, saying it was a historic moment because even if it's only a promise of elections, it's the first time that a Prime Minister in Israel sees Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria as a viable political plan. And now with Washington giving a quasi-green light over certain parts, even more so, it looks like something may finally move there. So I want to welcome to the show Nadia Matar.
Thank you. Shalom to all of you.
It's wonderful.
From Efrat.
From Efrat,
Judea.
Yes, okay. The resettlement of Efrat, because we're back there after 2,000 years. So,
absolutely.
Nadia, explain first of all to our listeners the difference between sovereignty and annexation.
First, it's very simple. It's a very big difference. Annexation is to take something that's not really yours. And sovereignty is to apply a sovereignty over an area that already is yours and belongs to you, and there's no legal problem to apply your Israeli law there. I want to remind the listeners that in 1967, the Six-Day War, when Israel thought that when the Arab armies gathered together to annihilate the Jewish nation, the Jewish state of Israel, and Israel was so worried about losing the war that they even dug tens of thousands of graves in orchards all over Israel, all over Little Israel. And a miracle happened. In 6 days we won the war. And the problem is that in order to also win the war in legal terms, what should have been done at the end of the Six-Day War, when we saw that we won and we returned to our biblical heartland, God-given biblical heartland, Judea, Samaria, Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, etc., etc., what should have been done is to apply Israeli sovereignty at that moment. But the problem is that they were so busy with trying to survive and making sure that we will not be annihilated, there were no plans. And instead of applying sovereignty at the time, because and there was no problem doing so. We did not conquer a foreign state. We did not take land that belonged to another country. It was ours. There's no problem with that. The government was in such shock of the victory that it decided not to decide, and it decided to create a body called the Civil Administration that will administer those areas till we decide what we do. On the other hand, citizens of Israel who had a usual life, etc., but understood the historical miracle here that just happened with God reopening and re-enabling us to return to our heartland, people like Rabbi Moshe Levinger Zatzal, people like Rabbi Hanan Porat said, what do you mean, what should we do? We should come in droves and renew Jewish life in all of those biblical areas where we used to be for so many decades. And that's when the settlement movement started. And Baruch Hashem, thank God, we have now over 250 Jewish communities. We have 500,000 Jews in Judea and Samaria. But still, the legal question mark is still over this area because the government still decided not to decide all those years, 50, what is it now, 53 almost. 50, yeah. And sovereignty would simply mean to apply Israeli rule over this area. You'll ask, so what is the rule now? It's Jordanian rule, believe it or not. On the Israeli citizens, there's also Israeli law. If I go through a red light, I will get a ticket. So I have all the obligations like any other citizen in Israel. But I don't have all the rights that an Israeli has. My cousin in Ramat Gan, if she wants to build a second floor or close her porch, or if I want to close my porch here in Efrat, the difference is that we will both go to the mayor. She will go to the Ramat Gan municipality. I will go to the Efrat local council. Let's say we both get a permit. Then she can go and start building, but I have to go and get a signature by the Minister of Defense, because here 500,000 Jews are under military rule. It would stop the military rule. It will include Judea and Samaria as if it's Kfar Saba, etc.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so tell our listeners, if we apply sovereignty there, a lot of people are thinking, but what's the world going to say?
Yes, well, Geula Cohen, who passed away a few months ago, who was a big fighter, a Lehi fighter, and she was the one who basically pushed for the application of Israeli sovereignty in Jerusalem. And people warned her the day before she passed the law, what will happen? Exactly like you just asked. And she said the sun is going to continue to shine, don't worry. And nothing happened. Nothing happened. A few embassies left and went to Tel Aviv. And she says, if that's the price, to have a few embassies maybe leave, and we are in Jerusalem and they are in Tel Aviv, I have no problem with that. We have to be strong and steadfast and believing in the justness of our cause. We have to understand that the Zionist vision is Israeli sovereignty between the sea and the Jordan River, all over. And it will be not only good and bring stability and prosperity and security to the Jewish people, it will be good for the Arabs who live here, who, by the way, the majority of them, if you could ask them quietly, without their heads being chopped off by the Palestinian Authority, but if you would, like we do, we speak to the Arabs here. We know that they want to be under Israeli sovereignty. Just ask, you should interview once Bassem Eid from Jericho. He's more right-wing than all of us together. And he always says, I prefer being a resident and not a citizen, because I understand you guys can't give us a citizenship, but I prefer being a resident under Israeli sovereignty than a citizen in a corrupt Palestinian state. So this sovereignty will bring good for the Jews, for the Arabs, and for America. The last thing we need here is a Palestinian state in the heart of our heartland that will bring in, of course we have to talk about the principle, first of all. How can we have a Palestinian state in Israel's biblical heartland? I'm talking about that for security reasons. It will bring in that entity, God forbid, if it was ever to be created, and we will make sure that it will never be created. It would bring in anti-American forces, anti-Israeli forces, anti-Western forces. Why do we need it? For the good of Israel, for the good of the world, for the good of America, the one and only vision has to be the vision of Israeli sovereignty over all of Judea and Samaria, and between the sea and the Jordan River.
Okay, I hate to play devil's advocate on this, but I want you to be able to explain. I want you to explain to our listeners why, because they're going to people will say, but you have to make peace with this population that's living there. And though Nadia Matar is right that if you asked a lot of them privately that they'd rather be under Israeli rule, what about the hardliners? Because it's the hardliners that you have to worry about. The ones who want to live quietly their lives and they want to just prosper and get ahead, they're not going to be the problem. It's the ones who are holding the guns, the ones who are willing to die in order to kill Jews, in order to get their state. Those are the people we have to worry about and deal with. And so what do you do there?
The people that you are talking about is 1% more or less of the Arab population, who indeed are the violent ones, terrorists, etc. And those are the only ones who have also national aspirations, not because they really want a state, but they want a state instead of our state. And who are those people? Those are the people who were imported here. Those are the people of the Palestinian Authority, who were imported here by the Oslo architects. And I will never forget, we had a sovereignty conference 2 years ago in Jerusalem. Just picture that scene. Over 1,200 people at the conference, and on the table, on the podium, was Sheikh Jabri from Hebron, who we had invited to be one of the main speakers. And he, because he is in favor of Israeli sovereignty and against the Palestinian State, and viciously against the Palestinian Authority, and he banged on the table and says, how did you curse us with those Oslo Accords? Don't you understand that what the Oslo Accords basically did was to bring foreign terrorists and impose them on us, the local Arab population, as our leaders out of the blue? You decided, you, the Oslo architects, decided that those terrorists, and you gave them a nice tie, and instead of their terrorist thing, and you turned them in, you gave them a suit and a tie, and you turned them into the Palestinian Authority. You invented this thing from nowhere, and forced them upon us as leaders. You have to destroy the Palestinian Authority. He says, and we want, and Bibi Netanyahu, when he bangs on the table and says, we want Israeli sovereignty.
But so Nadia, let me interrupt you here.
Are people from the PA. We need to, of course, dismantle the PA. We need to find local leaders who accept Israeli sovereignty. We will give them what they really want. This is the
okay,
Arab culture.
Nadia, hold that thought, because we have to go to a break right now. But I just want to say that you're saying that why did you? He's saying, why did you bring these people to us? But the people of Hebron in democratic elections elected a terrorist as their mayor. So maybe we can talk about that for a moment when we get back from the break. And by the way, if anybody wants to call in, feel free to do so. We'll be right back.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Our guest is Nadia Matar. She is the co-chairwoman of the Sovereignty Movement, and she's here talking about the importance of sovereignty here in the Jewish homeland and biblical homeland of I want you all after the show, or even now while you're listening, go and do a Google search for the 12 tribes of Israel and then put in their map. And go look at the map where the 12 tribes of Israel were. This is where Jewish history is. This is where it all happened. This is where the biblical stories happened. This is not settlements. They are resettlements. We are back here after 2,000 years. God brought us back here with miracles, and we are back here again establishing things, and you can see the magnanimity of Israel, the overflowing of goodness as we are back. It's better not just for the Jewish people and not even just for the Arabs who are living here, but also for the entire world. You can see Israel's leaders are leading in agriculture, in water desalination, in science and technology, in medicine, in all sorts of discoveries and inventions. It's just miraculous what we're seeing happening today. And the question of annexation and sovereignty is coming up now as well, especially with the elections right in front of us in another several days here in Israel. And so Nadia Matar has been talking to us, and she's been saying that there are even some Arabs living in the Palestinian Authority who cannot wait to shrug off this criminal entity called the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, which is what they are. Yet there are some, Nadia, I was telling you, that in democratic elections, we saw what happened in Gaza. They voted in the Hamas to represent them. These are terrorists. And in Hebron, they voted in a mayor who was a terrorist as well. In fact, he murdered the uncle of one of our show hosts here at Israel News Talk Radio. And today, he's the mayor of Hebron.
Yes, and it is terrible. And we could have prevented that. And you can also add and make it even more difficult for me for the question that in Gaza also they voted for Hamas. Obviously, the population, if they understand that they have hope of a Palestinian state, they will continue to and they have to also play the line. And if they see that Israel will not take over, then they will have to show loyalty to the strong people by them, which are the terrorists, because otherwise they will get into trouble. We know that. And therefore, we always say, people say there is terror because they are in despair. And we should just give them the hope of peace, and there will be no more terror. And it's exactly the opposite. As long as they have the hope that they will get a Palestinian state, that they will be able to take away land from us, there will be terror. The moment that we will apply Israeli sovereignty, and we will once and for all take away that question mark over this area, whether it's ours, not ours, it's ours, and you guys will never have a Palestinian state between the sea and the Jordan River. You want a Palestinian state in France, you want one in Saudi Arabia, wherever you are, not by us. When we will be clarifying that with the application of Israeli sovereignty, that will be the message. That will be the main message. There will never be a Palestinian state between the sea and the Jordan River. You will see that all those people who today voted for that criminal mayor will all of a sudden realize have the courage to go out against that corrupt and criminal leadership. So it's all depending on us of what kind of message. We have to once and for all break that hope of theirs, of a Palestinian state, and that is when there will be less terror, not more. And there will be less, and people will no more vote for those terrorists, and they will have the courage to go against the PA corrupt terrorist leadership that the Oslo architects imported here from outside.
Okay, so explain to our listeners now also, security-wise, why Israel cannot tolerate a terrorist state or any foreign state inside the belly of Israel. Tell them how close this state would be to Israel's international airport near Tel Aviv and Lod, and the dangers, etc.
Before I do that, if you permit me, I want to say one sentence. Even if there was no security threat, even if somebody wrote in our latest journal that we just put out this week, if it was a people of all lords, English lords who know how to behave, we wouldn't give up 1 inch of our homeland. Because a mother doesn't give away one of her children to the bully of the area just to try to appease him, and a nation doesn't give up its motherland, its homeland. So that is very important for us to say, first and foremost. It is not because of security reasons that we are against the Palestinian state. It's first and foremost ours. But in addition, it happens to be that indeed it also will endanger the state of Israel if, God forbid, there is a Palestinian state within our midst. People should Google, as you say, the map of Israel and see that a Palestinian state would endanger we were shouting when we were calling against the disengagement in 2005, and we were saying that missiles will start falling on the south of Israel, and they were laughing at us. They were calling us warmongers. Now I think people take us a little bit more seriously when we say that missiles will be flying from this new Palestinian state, God forbid, on Ben Gurion, planes will not be able to take off. It would be the main thing, they would change the demographics. People tell us we don't want 1.8 million Arabs and therefore we should give them a Palestinian state. It's again completely the opposite. Today there's a Jewish majority between the Jordan River and the sea, 66%. If, God forbid, we would have a Palestinian state, it would open its borders, of course, from the Jordan side, to all the millions of Arabs who are dreaming to leave wherever they are in Syria and all those places, and it would flood this new Palestinian state, God forbid, with millions of Arabs who would then overturn the Jewish majority that exists today in our area, and that would be also a danger. It's not only a security danger of missiles, It's a demographic time bomb that we would create with our own hands. So those who call for the creation of a Palestinian state call basically for the overturning of the Jewish majority between the sea and the Jordan River. In addition, people don't think about that. But what about ecology? Israel has to be, the entire land has to be seen as one unit. Is the how do you say all the ecological poisoning, etc. Does it stop at the border? It has to be seen as one ecological unit, and it has to be under the control of a responsible sovereign nation, Israel. If you go to the Arab villages, you see how they do not care about ecology and destroy the nature.
They burn their garbage.
One more question, and the last one. What about the expansion and the development of the State of Israel? In 2040, there will be 20 million people between the sea and the Jordan River, 15 million Jews, 5 million Arabs. Where are we supposed to expand? In Tel Aviv, where today the population density is more dense than Gaza? We need Judea and Samaria to expand, to grow, for our future. So the creation of a Palestinian state will be a danger, security, and for the security danger, demographic danger, principal danger for the future of the State of Israel.
I have this question to ask you, and that is, why doesn't the Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, talk like you do?
That is the $1 million question. I think that we first have to give him some good points and remember that he stood firm for 8 years against President Obama, who we have to give him all the credit for that. He brought this country to developed it into a one of the most important countries in the world. The economy is flourishing. He's a brilliant man, and we have to hope that he wins the elections and not Gantz, who would be a tragedy. Why doesn't he talk like I do? I think that I would like to hope that deep down he believes in everything we say, and we can say as activists and as extra-parliamentary activists, you can talk a little bit different than if you're a prime minister or a minister. And I assume that his whole idea of a Palestinian state is based on the fact that he knows that they will not agree to it, and therefore he will be able to show that he, as if, gave them the option, and then they said no. It's a very dangerous tack to take, but I cannot be his spokesman while he's not speaking like us. I just know one thing, that we have to make sure to pass a message to him and to our friends in the Trump administration, and they are our friends, that sovereignty, yes, but a Palestinian state, never.
You're saying that he needs to remain to be the prime minister and not Benny Gantz. What do you want to tell people who are still undecided and who they want to vote for?
I think that I speak to a lot of people, and there's incredible complacency, and we're very worried about this. People on the right, there are 300,000 people on the right who did not go out and vote the last time because they thought they're sick and tired of politics, etc. And I tell all those people, I wish I could reach each and one of them. Did you forget what it means when the left is in power? Do you understand that by staying home, you vote for the left and you bring back the Oslo mindset, the blowing up of the buses, the going down of the economy? It is tragic. There is an overwhelming right-wing majority in Israel. But so many of them are sick and tired of politics, and they are being purists. And
Nadia, we have to go to a break. What do you suggest for them to do?
They should go out and vote for the right wing. For the only two parties, for the parties that for sure will pass the threshold.
Okay, so you're talking either Likud or the right-wing bloc.
I am an extra-parliamentary organization. I'm not telling anyone who to vote for.
All right.
Just go out and make sure the right wing will win.
All right. Hold it right there. We're going to be back, everybody. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio. This is Shai Bentakoa, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Our guest is Nadia Matar. She is the co-chairwoman of the Sovereignty Movement. She is here as our guest, and we're talking about the importance of sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, what a lot of people like to refer to and wrongly refer to as the West Bank, and why it is so important, and why it is so important also, not just for Israel, but for the world, that there is not a Palestinian state that should never be made. The Arabs have 22 states to live in that they want to. They have more, even Muslim states that they can go to, but there's only one Jewish state, and it is vastly of priority importance that no Palestinian terror state is made here, or not even a peaceful Palestinian state, because this is the land of the Jewish people. And we know also in the Bible, it says that this belongs to the Jewish people, and it belongs not just to this generation that's alive today, but to our future generations, to our children and our children's children. And this generation has no right to give away the land of Israel to anyone else, when God says, if you're a Bible-believing person, that this land belongs to the Jewish people. So, Nadia, I just want in this last segment just to let's move this to a positive note, that how, if Israel does annex, if Prime Minister Netanyahu says that he's going to annex parts of Judea and Samaria into, I shouldn't say annex, but apply sovereignty over these many of these areas, how it's going to be beneficial for everybody. Because let me just read this one thing. In the last elections, when Prime Minister Netanyahu said that he promised to apply sovereignty over the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, the answer of the Labor Party, Chairman Avi Gabai of the Labor Party, said that annexation, he's quoting Bibi as saying, I'm sorry, let me read it like this. He says, annexation is the most dangerous adventure in Israel's history. He stated that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in his own voice that he intends to take Israel on the most dangerous adventure in its history, the annexation of 2.5 million Palestinians. I'm quoting what Gabai said. I'm asking you, is it really that dangerous, or is this just scare tactics and fear-mongering that the left is saying will happen if Israel makes this annexation and applies sovereignty?
Well, we know where Avi Gabai is now, and we know how low the Labor Party has sunk, so we don't have to really take seriously the screaming of the left, who basically are interested in destroying the settlement enterprise, etc. I want to say the positive things. We discussed this whole show with you, Tamar, about all the important things that can happen, but the most important thing is that the application of Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, the Israeli sovereignty between the sea and the Jordan River all over, will be a victory for morality. It will be, and I want to say something also good. The Trump administration tried and basically said that the Jewish people have a right to this land. Unfortunately, they connected it with giving the Arabs also, and we hope and pray that they will reconsider this part of the Palestinian state, because that was a mistake. But the fact when there will be Israeli sovereignty, and only Israeli sovereignty, between the sea and the Jordan River, morality will have won. Because giving a Palestinian state would mean to give a prize to the bad guys. And President Trump represents exactly that. The guy who is not afraid to represent the good guys, the good, and the guy who is not afraid to fight evil. There is a war here in the world between good and evil, between the light and the darkness. We, the Jewish people, and our friends, and those friends of ours, those who are on our side, as we know, there is a blessing. God blesses those who bless Israel. And those are the people who are on the side of the light, of the morality, of the justness of the cause, of God. And that will be the main thing. It will be a victory for the light, for the justice, for morality. And from there on, all the other things we discussed, how important it will be to develop Israel, etc., we don't have to repeat all that. But that is the main thing. And that is what President Trump also represents. The victory of the light unto the darkness. Not to be afraid to fight evil. And we call upon him to continue with that and delete the idea of the Palestinian state, which puts some darkness on the plan. And we believe that is not our vision, and we don't think it's the vision of America either. The vision is a vision of positive vision, of justness, of sovereignty, of stability, of prosperity, of security, and of real peace.
All right. Very, very good, very powerful. I hope that the Prime Minister of Israel can speak as forcefully and as convincingly and as with the conviction that you speak with. You put out in the Jerusalem Post last weekend a journal. Tell us about that.
The journal, basically, we started the sovereignty to promote sovereignty in 2011 when we saw that it's not enough to just fight the local battles. And how do you basically convince the people about something? You have to have lectures and conferences, etc. But then Yehudit Katzover, who I have the privilege to work with, and I feel myself a student, that we need to get to as many people as we can. And that's only a journal will do so. And since 2013, we basically have a journal once or twice a year, depending on the fundraising, and that we spread in 200,000 copies. This weekend, we put out our 12th issue, and thanks to a dear friend who has been sponsoring that, and unfortunately he passed away, and his wife continues to sponsor the journal, Professor Robert Wolf, which one day we'll give him also a radio show to talk about him. And anyway, it was 200,000 copies in Hebrew and in English, and there's many articles there. And I call upon the listeners, if you would like, if you permit me, Tamar,
absolutely,
to give out our email and our website. If you would like to read our journal, because if you want to understand sovereignty, one needs to also read and study it. I know that in 2020, people like to talk in Twitter and 14 letters and 2 letters. Sometimes one needs to deepen and understand and read, and that's what our journal is about. And the journal helped us very much to change the public consciousness here in Israel of the politicians and of the people. So if you permit me, I will give our email, first of all, ribonut@gmail.com. That's the easiest. Ribonut is in Hebrew sovereignty. It's RIBONUT @gmail.com. You can contact us, give us your details, and we'll send you by snail mail our address, our journal. And we also have a campaign calling upon the people to join the sovereignty movement to give us the strength to continue, because with all due respect to the talk, basically, there's only talk now about sovereignty. We have to now go to the next stage of actually implementing it. And for that, the sovereignty movement needs your backing, the backing of a lot of people who become members. We have to say that we have thousands and thousands of members. And if you email me your details, I will send you all the details how to become a member. And everybody who becomes a member gets a special card in cooperation with the Pekatom, who promotes the businesses in Judea and Samaria. Each one who becomes a member gets a card that will enable you to get discounts in different places in Judea and Samaria, and thus, by doing so, you will be strengthening the economy of all the Judea and Samaria businesses, which comes at a great time after the UN gave a blacklist of boycotting the businesses in Judea and Samaria. You will be not only strengthening the sovereignty movement, but you'll be strengthening also the businesses in Judea and Samaria together with Dapei Katom. You can look them up, and it's a very exciting project.
All right.
And join us.
Give out your website where people can go and become a member.
Okay, we have two websites. If you one is womeningreen.org or Ribonut. If you want to spell it to the people, Ribonut is very easy. RIBONUT.co.il. And if you have problems finding it, I would like you to email me, and I'll immediately answer you at Ribonut. Again, Ribonut, RIBONUT @gmail.com. will send you all the information.
I remember I don't have it in front of me, but I remember in your journal it was ribonut.co.il / something else. I don't remember. Do you know?
That's for the English, but you can do ribonut.co.il, and then you go and you click on English.
Okay, and there people can go and they can become a member.
Yeah, they can become a member. We have the same on our womeningreen.org site. There, too, you can become a member. You can choose between the two. The Women in Green is maybe better for English speakers.
And it's womeningreen.org. Okay. And I just want to tell everybody, it's 18 shekels?
That's the minimum. Of course, people want to donate more, can do, but it's a high. 18 is by us, high, Am Yisrael high. The people are alive and well. And it's a yearly fee of 18 shekel, which is everybody can pay that, students and youth and adults. And, of course, any additional donations will be welcome. But we wanted to have a minimum that everybody can feel that they can join.
Okay. Now, I didn't plan to talk about joining this on the show, but I'm glad that we're doing it because I'm going to try to do that today as well. But again, I just want to tell you all, if you join, you're bringing your name into the group there so they can come with strength when they make demands of the government to listen to the people. So it's very important that you go there and do that. 18 shekels, by the way, is like around, a little over $6, something like that. Yep. It's like nothing. And you will get afterwards do they get a card or a number?
A physical card, like a Visa card, a beautiful card that we will send you. Obviously, people who live abroad will have to come to visit Israel and use their card when they come and visit here. Or they can maybe give it over to a friend of theirs. No, it's a private card, really.
All right.
So you'll come and
you'll get discounts.
Here and come and visit us and call us.
Amen.
We'll show you around.
Nadia Matar, I want to bless you. God bless you for all the hard work you do for the Jewish people, for the land of Israel. You are a true hero. And I'm going to post all this information on the page where the show is podcasted so people can go and become a member.
I'm just a little link together with many, many other activists. This would not have been possible without all these supporters and friends and the real boss in this organization.